Welcome to Kino Society with Owen Shapiro. In today's episode, we have Andrew Wehde, known for his work on A24's Eighth Grade and the upcoming Netflix series Grand Army. Drew specializes in naturalistic lighting and camera work. Welcome to Kino Society.
Hey, thanks.
So what made you want to get a career in the film industry?
Honestly, it started when I had no idea I wanted to be in this. I even was in college at that point, not knowing that this is where I wanted to be. I went to DePaul University in Chicago, and my sophomore year of school there, they opened up the digital cinema program, which to this day I think is one of the more premier digital schools, which is great. And when I was there, it was just me and a couple dozen kids, and we just had access to all the toys, and we made short films on the weekends. And even at that point, I didn't even know what a career in this was. And it wasn't until years later is when I started realizing that, there was a future in this. Even though I never did anything other than this, I kind of started in photography, and that was where I kind of built the naturalistic kind of lighting background and my understanding of lenses and shooting people and, all of those type of things. Between the ages of 24 and 27, I shot over 2,000 models and actors and actresses had shots, just basically churning them out. And that kind of got me realizing I wanted to work more with a group of people than by myself. And it focused me back into doing cinematography.
So what about cinematography personally appeals to you?
What I like about cinematography is more or less, the execution of it, the satisfaction of seeing something finished and bringing it from whether it was a storyboard or an idea that was pitched by a director or brought to me, and seeing it through, creating a plan, putting the plan in place and executing it, and seeing the creation ultimately, hopefully better than what it was incepted. So, I love that process. To me, being able to build a team and be able to work with the same people over and over to create a shorthand and allow people's creative input to help push, the career I'm creating and their career they're creating, and, the creating work together over and over and getting better at it is just kind of addicting and fun. And I wouldn't want to do anything else.
So what's an average workday like for you?
Well, if we're talking about the actual production, once we're out of prep, and prep is, more or less longer than the actual process of making whatever it is you're making. But when we're making it, when it's the day-to-day in and out, a very long version, let's shorten it, but you have your morning meeting of your AD department and your morning meeting of your camera, grip, and electric departments, and go over exactly, what the plan is, the locations where things need to go. And a lot of this has been talked about during our tech scouts. And so, so much is said more before the day of execution than on the day a lot of the times. And to me, that's the planning step that I really love, seeing things coming together without having to, overmanage or to micromanage. But the day-to-day really is, you have conversations with your director or directors. You have your conversations with your camera operators. You have conversation with your focus puller, your assistant, your key assistant about how the day's going to go so that they can manage the day themselves. And you have conversations with your key grip and gaffer, which just for me is obviously it's fun and allows us to, take a plan that maybe we put in place and talk about what we could do a little differently based on the weather that day or the location, if there's better sun at this time, or, whatever happened. It's a lot of conversations. You trust this enormous amount of people that you surround yourself with, because if I were to micromanage all their jobs, I wouldn't be able to do my job. And so, you put the best people in the positions. I take pride in building really good crews, and I love the people I work with, and I have great operators. I have great assistants, and I trust them. I don't need to tell them much, and I don't need to, micromanage their day-to-day thing. They know what I'm trying to get, and they know what my end goal is, and I just let them do it, because more than 95% of the time, they're going to give me the product that I want, but just better than what I envisioned. And so I don't know. I love that whole idea of, letting someone go and doing their thing.
So, do you think, despite you don't always work with the same crew, or you don't really work with the same crew on several different projects, do you?
I'm very lucky now to be at a point where I do have a rotating crew that I get to bring up apart a lot of my jobs. I did back-to-back movies in 2020 during the pandemic, which we did one in the beginning of 2020 in Alabama, which is a movie called The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. It's out on Amazon right now. And then we did a movie in LA called Queen Pins, which comes out this summer. And I had the same camera crew for both of those movies. My give or take one or two people, but the core was there. And you you start showing your producers, and you start showing people that, if you keep us together, we're going to make our days. We work really well, and end of the day, you'll end up saving money that way. So I always fight for my people, just because, one, like I said earlier, they only elevate the work that I do. So if I like to continue, the train. I like to continue the, job to job with them. And it's important to me that, by keeping them involved, they feel like they have, a part of what it is that I'm doing. And so then it feels like it's their thing too. And it really is. That's, I think, in the end, the really important thing is, it's not, as a DP or cinematographer, it's not just you. Maybe at first, early in a career, you build a career because you go out and shoot some commercials, or you shoot this or shoot that, and you do it all on your own. And yes, like, sure, you make your name for yourself. But when you're talking about, a studio film, and you're talking about lots of money, and you're talking about, A-list actors, like, it's not me anymore. It's the whole project. It's the team. It's everyone involved. And so the moment you realize that, that's when your work will get better, because then you're surrounding yourself with the right people.
So, what you don't get into any creative conflicts with your crew, do you?
Creative decisions are ultimately coming from me, which are being discussed with my director or directors. And then just the way the process would work is that I like to leave this options on the table. I'll bring in my operator, I'll bring in my first AC, and we'll talk about what I just had a conversation about. And I will give them the idea of what I would like to do. And, 5 times out of 10, my operator's like, I have a better idea, and we go with it. And that's fine. Every once in a while, I'm stubborn, and I'll just be like, no, this is what I want to do. And yeah, I mean, there's conflict, but that conflict, the moment we start rolling, that conflict's done, because, the team is now focused on the moment at hand, and they're going to make the best out of that moment. I think if you put conflict, if you are creating conflict or allowing conflict, then one, either you have the wrong people you're working with, or two, you're not processing and, doing the best job that you can, because then you're not open to suggestions from other people.
So, speaking of creativity, how much of cinematography is creativity and how much of it is just purely technical?
I think there's a three-way split. I think there's creativity, there's the technical knowledge of things, and then there's maybe even four ways. There's the management side of things, how well you can manage people, and then there's the political side. Like, you have to play the game. Like, you have to understand your role, and you have to understand how you can communicate that will get you what you want without coming across, aggressive, or coming across needy, and you're coming across as a team player. Like, there's a lot of politics on it, and there's a lot about how you represent yourself in the public circle. When there's this, at the end of a day or the beginning of a day, and you have the circle of your producers, you have the circle that has the AD and your director, and it's people who are way more important than you are. You have to fall in line a little bit, and you have to kind of listen. And then when they ask for your opinion, you do it nicely. Like I say that we're in a business now that the only behavior is your best behavior. And so that goes back to, like, yes, there's creativity, and that creativity ultimately is probably your most important trait, because it's what allows you to be an individual in this very fast growing industry. It allows you to have your own visual style or your own visual language, and you can approach things differently. Like there's creativity about how you light, there's creativity how you move the camera, there's creativity of how to make a day, like how you can be creative about being fast or being slow. But I do think that there's the technical understanding. Like, I love lenses, I understand lenses, I've taken apart lenses. Like, part of me on a technical level, I can talk lenses with a lens tech at a rental house, and that helps me understand that world. I know the camera language, I know data, I know all that, and that's fine. But it's just so that I can have conversations with the experts, with my experts, whoever I surround myself with. And then I do think you have to have the other side of things. You have to be political, and you have to be a manager. So unfortunately, the busier or more successful, or whatever you want to call it, the creativity pie gets smaller, or there's just a lot more responsibility.
So do you think that smaller projects allow for more freedom or more expressionism for the cinematographer?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times being able to, I think that's changing a lot. I think the idea of, being, expressionism is one word, but, pushing the visual language away from commercial, cinematography is happening not just on your independents, but it's happening on your studio films more than ever. And I think that's because producers are starting to be okay with taking risks with a director's vision. But you have to understand, like, in the end of the day, the director, if you would hope your director is the one who comes up with a lot of these ideas. Truly, a cinematographer's job, like, if we're doing our best job, it's executing their vision. It's like, obviously I'm bringing things to the table, and obviously I'm suggesting things and helping build a visual language and building tone and all of that. But being able to push a visual style, if you want to, I don't know who you want to use an example of, but most 9 times out of 10, that's coming from your director. So it's really just about making sure that you allow that space, that they want to share that, and you can help execute it. But I do think that we're seeing more and more of that happening at the larger scale. But yes, I do agree that most of the time, the reason you can get away with it on lower budget or smaller independents or short films is because there's not as much to lose. But that's what studios are realizing, that if they want to stand out from the films that are winning awards or the films that are doing great, which are the smaller films, they have to start taking chances too.
Which of your works are you most proud of? And are there any that stick out as more challenging to pull off than others?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm proud of my work, obviously, but all my work is different. I'm still like, in that bubble that I'm known for making eighth grade. But I have a film coming out this year, Queen Pins, which I think is, I from a execution, visual execution, I think it's a really beautiful film, and it works really well with the tone of the script, and it I'm really excited for people to see it. I also think The Map of Tiny Perfect Things, which did well, and it got great ratings, but not as many people saw it, is my most beautiful work. It's very naturalistic. We shot so much of it, whether the sun was coming up or the sun was going. I don't want to be the one that stands out. I think it's really important that the story and the script are number one, and I support that. Took chances, and we made a super raw looking film for a genre that doesn't see that happen much. So I don't know, part of my goal is just to approach every job, every show, every movie, whatever you want to call it, and just make sure that the cinematography, one, matches the script and, in the tone, and two, is kind of invisible.
Right. So now for a few more personal questions. Do you have any favorite movies or directors?
I mean, a lot of my influences come from kind of watching, Steven Soderbergh over and over and over for the last 10 years or something like that. And I love everything that he's done. And, the other spectrum, I've kind of had cult followed Sofia Coppola at the same time. So I think, those are two, artists that have always excited me with their work. And it always allowed me to believe that, you know, not all cinematography has to be like a studio film. And I think that they've proven that over and over again, that budget doesn't dictate the look. And so I've always really admired them. And, obviously the cinematographers that have worked with Sophia and, Steven, who shoots himself. And I think that there's a lot to be said about, taking chances and believing that, you don't need to relight everything. You don't need to use the biggest lights, and you can, assess a location and communicate that to your AD department that the best time to shoot this is between this time or this time. And, I feel like that is the way that I like to work, and it excites me. And so I'd rather be in that world. And that's why I love watching, those type of movies and see how they do it. And it just helps me realize that it's okay. I don't need to emulate the big looking stuff.
Due to their cinematography?
I don't know. It's like I think a lot of what I've watched over the years. I constantly watch Lost in Translation, or I constantly watch like Collateral for Michael Mann. It's they're totally different spectrums, but they still feel similar to me, and their perspectives are, in line with what I like. It's weird. It's like when you're doing it, I don't really watch that much. Even though I watch it, I just don't absorb it as well as maybe everyone else. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't know. It helps me stay true to what feels right to me. And I don't know. I've always tried not to emulate. And so I try to watch things as more of a fan than I do as like as an assignment or something.
So, what would you say to someone who wants to enter the world of cinema, and what would you say to someone who's specifically interested in cinematography?
I don't know. That's a good question. It's a hard one to answer because part of me believes in film school and part of me doesn't. And I don't want to be the one that tells you like, oh, don't go to film school. But I do believe that there is a path that can be your own, which includes, just getting a camera and start shooting. I don't know. Everyone has a different path. My path was so unorthodox, and I don't even know if I understand it completely. I think the key is making sure that you like it, and you make sure that it's something that you do every day. So I don't know, maybe the first step is to, if your community or your town or city you live in has productions, is to get on that, work for free if you have to, and observe and watch and see the chaos that happens day to day, and see if that's something that excites you. And if it does, your path is either, go find a rental house and work at a rental house, and that gets you to meet people, or, you know, go meet all your producers in town and try to become a PA. And then that way you can work your way up that way, or go to film school and try to work your way that way. Or I don't know. It's just, I don't think there's a real way to get in. I think there's so many ways to get in that you just need to not worry so much about it and just kind of do it, which sounds so stupid. But I think if you love it and you're good at it, the success comes. Unfortunately, it just happens, and it could happen and it take a long time. It took me like 10 years. It's a long process. But if you love it and you keep at it, then it rewards you.
Do you have any current projects?
Yes, I start a TV show in 2 weeks called Light Years. It's an Amazon original series being produced by Legendary TV. Um, it stars Sissy Spacek and J.K. Simmons, and it's a sci-fi drama. It's pretty pretty exciting. It's probably the largest thing that I've been a part of. I'm sharing the show with another DP, so we're doing alternate episodes, and yeah, I mean it's exciting. It's some stage work, it's some location work, it's sci-fi, it's drama. It's cool. But yeah, that starts in 2 weeks, and then yeah, I have Queen Pins coming out. So Queen Pins, I think Queen Pins will do really well. It stars Kristen Bell and Vince Vaughn, and it's a really cool, fun, high paced action kind of drama movie. It's cool.
How can my listeners connect with you?
You can connect with me through Instagram or through my website at andrewwehde.com. I try to be accessible. I mean, I'm normal like all you guys, so anyone can kind of reach out at any point.
All right. That's all for today. Thank you so much, Andrew, for your time.
Yeah, man.
Don't forget you can subscribe to Kino Society on iTunes and Spotify.